I'm Sara Goldvine, and this is Let's Talk Housing, a podcast by BC Housing. In this space, we explore the complex systemic issues that make it challenging for many people in British Columbia to access and afford a home. The provincial government has an ambitious plan with the largest investment in housing affordability in BC's history. Tasked with helping deliver on this plan is BC Housing, which is working with hundreds of partners to develop, manage, and administer a wide range of affordable housing and homelessness services in hundreds of communities across the province. In this podcast, you'll hear from those delivering innovative and exciting affordable housing solutions. Today on Let's Talk Housing, we'll be talking about an exciting project called Project Rise. I'm Sara Goldvine, and welcome to Let's Talk Housing. Today's program is all about next steps. What happens after someone secures housing? Project Rise is an innovative workplace training program in Nanaimo and Parksville on Vancouver Island. It helps people living in supportive and subsidized housing gain employment and life skills, bringing participants opportunities for independence and hope. Before we begin, I'd like to acknowledge that we are recording today's podcast from the ancestral and unceded homelands of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh, as well as from the homelands of the Coast Salish peoples on the territory of the Nanaimo Nation. We offer respect to their peoples, past and present. Also, in full transparency, this episode is being recorded in August of 2022 and reflects the issues and challenges of this time. Island Crisis Care operates a variety of housing and outreach programs in Nanaimo and Oceanside in the mid-Vancouver Island region. Among them are 3 BC Housing-funded supportive housing developments in the area, Orchid Place in Parksville and Samaritan Place and Newcastle Place in Nanaimo. This housing is specifically for people who are experiencing or at risk of homelessness. Samaritan Place also offers bridge to housing beds for women leaving crisis. All of these programs seek to support people who have experienced crisis to help them find stability and return to a place where they can focus on wellness and recovery. What Island Crisis Care staff has found is that while some program clients are content and grateful just to have housing and security, many are looking for more, looking for work, however, can be intimidating. Here today to talk about an exciting project that helps bridge that gap is Corrie Corfield, who's the Director of People and Culture and Engagement at Island Crisis Care Society. Also joining us is Stephen Cochrane, the coordinator of Project Rise. Corrie and Stephen, welcome to Let's Talk Housing.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Corrie, I'd like to start by setting some context for our listeners. Can you tell us about how Island Crisis Care Society started and how its programs have evolved over the years?
Yeah, for sure. So Island Crisis Care has actually operated in the Nanaimo region since the early 80s. We became a nonprofit society in 1989. And we really came about just to address need in the community. So it was a group of individuals that were seeing the needs of those experiencing or at risk of homelessness in the community. And so they rented a little 100-year-old house on Nickel Street here in Nanaimo, and Samaritan House was born. So they were, at that time, weren't even an official society. They were just, had rented a house and were welcoming people in, like I say, meeting the needs exactly where we were. And so through the years that we've formalized our programs, we've been given some great opportunities through funders such as BC Housing to really expand our programming and continuing doing what we did right from the beginning, which is addressing the needs that we see in our community. So we're now up to, I believe we have 13 programs across 7 different sites in Nanaimo and the Oceanside or Parksville communities. So again, everything that we do is, following that mission to provide shelter and care to those in need, and addressing the needs in often innovative ways, as we see with this program.
From one small house, Samaritan House, to 13 programs. That's quite a change. Can you tell us a bit, how did Project Rise get started and why did you decide to add Project Rise to your mix of programs?
Yeah, so I think it's something that's been on the radar for a significant number of years as we've addressed the needs and we focus primarily on housing and basic needs, offering some wraparound support as well. And part of the model that we offer is understanding that people are whole people. And if we're addressing those housing needs, we also need to be addressing their other, spiritual needs and emotional needs and needs for connecting in the community, because it's not just about housing only. And so, throughout the years, we've seen that people kind of get to that point where they have a level of stability. They have, walls, they have a roof over their head, they have access to stable food and healthcare and other supports around them. And they start to ask questions like, what's next? And to this point, we haven't really had a lot of options. We've referred out to other agencies and really tried to connect to some of the other great work that's happening in Nanaimo. But for a lot of folks, there's a huge stigma and there's a huge barrier between, going from being homeless or precariously housed to kind of getting that stability, and then to think about actually entering the job market and, the real world becomes a really big barrier. And so for those folks, even some of the programs that already exist out in the community just aren't necessarily the best fits because they're facing some barriers that maybe others aren't facing. So we really knew that this is something that we wanted to do for a lot of years through ICCS. But obviously with everything in nonprofit, funding becomes a challenge. So it was kind of, looking for the right time and finding the best way to go forward with that, which is what we've done here.
So we're about 5 or so months into this program. And Stephen, I'd love to bring you in here. Project Rise got started in April, which is so long, not very long ago, right? And you've been working with the participants in the program. Can you tell us about the people that you've been working with in this program over the past few months?
Well, I can tell you, Sara, that the stories that I hear and when I first come to meet them, I'm always taken back by the journey that they've taken in order to get there. I often find myself looking at challenging myself to come up with that answer, that solution of where I'm going to find that job for them, or the type of programming that we're going to do to engage that spark and that interest towards doing something than just, as Corrie said, just staying at their housing complex and not getting out into the community. So that's what motivates me to kind of come every day and find a different story each day, and encourage myself to want to do more.
That's really great. So you're already on the second cohort, right? And you have a group of folks that would have started in April who've already graduated. Can you tell us a little bit about how their lives have changed and what you're hearing from them about the impact of this program?
This is the moment where I get like a proud papa. And it's the birds leaving the nest story and all that rolled up in everything in between. So when I see how their lives have changed, so let's just say for them to come here every day, engage in what they call school, which is kind of cool because I never called it school, but it's the training portion of the program, which they get to know one another during. And now they feel that they're part of something more than just them. And so once they've gone through that, and then we're talking to them every day, coming up with ideas about where they're going to work and what they're going to do after the training portion, it really starts to open up their eyes to a community and to the potential of hope out there that never existed before.
Oh, that's so great. And Stephen, you mentioned that the participants think of this as school. I've seen the space, and it's lovely, right? I mean, it feels very professional and also kind of feels like home at the same time. Can you tell us a little bit about what a regular day would look like for somebody when they're in the program?
I'm glad you alluded to the space because I'm very proud of our space. It was the old owner's residence. So we have a commercial grade kitchen with a huge island. So it's like any household, you come and you conjugate around the island. But we cook every day for them. So they come and we have either a breakfast or a lunch for them, which is becoming a bit of the motivator, I think, for them to come. But if they come for the meal and I give them a little tidbits of information along the way, I'm okay with that. But they come from kind of like 10 to 2. Again, we have a morning program, a break for lunch, and then an afternoon program. And we go through all kinds of things from, I like to say it's the 4 pillars of our program, as we do essential skills. So we look at, reading, writing, and all those kind of things. We look at job skills that are interviewing and those kind of things that they get them ready. I call them little tastes, so that if they didn't experience or haven't been in a industry before, we have workshops that would allow them to try it on for like an hour or 2 or half a day, so that it can also give them the idea of where they might work later on, right? So, and then we go into life skills with, time management, communication, all that kind of stuff. And then the most important one, which is the personal growth. So we look at hygiene, we look at self-care, we look at all the interpersonal stuff that they've been lacking for the last time, where they've isolated and just been surviving, right? So those are the templates that we the cornerstone, if you will, that sets them up for the 4 weeks of learning. Then once they got through the learning, then we have a job fair. And the job fair invites 10 to 15 participating like work hosts to come to us. Then they can interview the participants on a speed dating type of thing, like 5 to 10 minute interviews. And then between the work host and the participant, we decide on who's the best fit for what placement. And then that's when the match happens. And it's given us a very high success rate, knowing that I didn't make the decision, but the participant did, along with the work host's involvement. So it's an exciting time.
Oh, that's so great. And we actually have an audio clip from one of the recent graduates, Dawn, who Let's Talk Housing caught up with. Stephen, can you tell us a little bit about Dawn?
He's one of those guys that he started actually with me doing the renovation on the very space that we're working on here. And then he was able to contribute so much. I just felt I got to keep this guy along for the program right after that we were going into. And so, long story short, he's one of those guys that has really developed into a spokesperson, and one of the ones who's had so much change and has happened in his life, where he says, now I have a life outside of my room, and knows that he's contributing to the other participants and encouraging them to participate in a program that he's received so much from. So
amazing. Okay, let's listen to Dawn.
I was in a no care attitude in my life, where I just really, I knew I wasn't a bad person, knew I wasn't a good person, but now I want to push it. I want to see just how good it can get. I recommend this program to anyone. Even if you think you have your life in order, they're going to make you try harder. There's just no way you don't come out of this being a better person.
Stephen, you were there with Dawn when he shared that very moving anecdote. What was going through your mind as you listened to him?
Well, I think I've said it before, but we often don't know the impact that's going to be in the participants' lives, and what we do to try to make a difference in their lives, and when it will take hold, or that light bulb moment will go on for them. But it's kind of emotional. So I've really come to be close with a lot of them, and to know that you do become that kind of prodigal parent, and to know that while they've been with you, it's taken hold of their lives, and they've now decided to consciously do something different than they did before. And for him to have said those words it made me cry. And the paycheck just becomes secondary at that point in time. So
really, really beautiful. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that, Stephen.
Thanks.
Now, Corrie, part of what makes this project so interesting and exciting is that ICCS purchased the Nanaimo Bakery as a social enterprise. Can you tell us a little bit about the social enterprise model and how does it tie into Project Rise?
Yeah, for sure. It is actually very exciting and a really innovative model that we've used. So I love talking about it and sharing. So through that process of just determining that this type of programming is really what we needed to move forward with as an organization, of course, we needed to know how to fund that and having some sort of stability in that and knowing that it was something that we could continue long term. Was really important. So ICCS has been looking at social enterprise for a number of years. And about a year and a half ago, we started the process of really doing some real design thinking. And we worked with our team throughout. So right from frontline workers up to our exec and our board. And started thinking about what that could look like for us. What could social enterprise look like? What areas did we want to move into? And then through that, we actually just came upon a building that was for sale that happened to have a business built right in, a great existing business that's got a great reputation within our community, which is the Nanaimo Bakery. So we went through a long and intense process of learning what that looks like, because it is a very intense process for a nonprofit to actually create a for-profit corporation, which is what we did. Through that, we learned we were one of only a handful of organizations who've gone this route. And then our for-profit corporation, which is called Rising Hope Services, Inc., actually purchased the building and the bakery. And then began the process of converting into a social enterprise, which means that all of the funds that are raised, all of the profits of the business, then are able to be returned to Island Crisis Care Society to support programming like Project Rise, which is huge. It means that we have stability. It means that we can plan ahead for the future, and we can plan to expand and grow the program and really look to touching as many lives as possible. So, the funding model of that is really exciting and it's a great thing, but it also means that our community can get involved. We've heard so much from community over the years, over 30 years of offering service here, that people really, they want to support, but they want to have something specific to support. And one of those things is that bridging of the gap. Looking at employment and things like that. So the community really gets behind that because it's something that's meaningful to them. So when we can say to folks, come to the Nanaimo Bakery, buy things that you were going to buy anyways, buy your breads and your pastries and your birthday cakes and all of that, and know that when you make those purchases, the profits are actually going to make a huge impact in our community. It becomes a really, really exciting win-win for all of us. So, that's the funding model of what we're doing with the social enterprise, and it's fascinating. I love talking about it because I think it's a way forward for a lot of nonprofits. But the secondary part of it that is also very exciting is that we now also have a built-in work placement site for our participants. So Stephen talked before about we've got some great connections with other businesses who have stepped up and are taking participants on. And giving them work experience, which is so valuable. But for some people, they don't want to be working in construction or other options that we have out there. So we have the bakery. So if anybody's interested in learning more about food service or about baking, there's so many options. So we can actually take placements in the bakery. It's really fun to see, people interacting with customers and it's another great win-win for ourselves as an organization, for our participants, and for the community as well.
Plus, the baked goods and the coffee are just delicious.
Well,
so
goes
good,
without
so
saying.
good. So, Stephen, of course, some participants in this program, as Corrie mentioned, work in the bakery. Can you tell us, though, a little bit about other employment placements and how, in particular, how have local businesses responded to this program?
Well, I can tell you they've responded extremely positively. Not only if you look at the labor market shortage that we have in all kinds of industries, that's always a big selling pitch. Like if you want me to go and talk to somebody and say, hey, well, are you a little short on some staff? Well, I've got some people that are looking to have work, and I'm going to train them. I'm going to get them certified, get them some of the industry related qualifications. But it's more I always very protective of the participant, because I'm building capacity for success. And I want them to do well. And I want the work host to not be burdened by having them there and having to do a lot of the work to keep them working. I'm hesitant to use burden, but that's the best way that they describe it to me, is that they don't want a whole lot of extra work. So I always look for the employer who's got an inclusionary practice kind of lens on. So they're knowing that these people have had some barriers. They know that they might be struggling with mental health and addiction. They know that they haven't been working for a long time, and they're just coming back into the industry. And then they say, yep, but we're still going to take that chance and know that they're going to get a subsidized employee. So we sometimes subsidize up to 50 to 100% of the wage of the person who's working for them. And then we make it really easy for them, because I give them all their timesheets and all the other things that they're required for the paperwork portion. We even pay their WCB premium, so there's no risk to them, and they're covered. But to an employer who's really short-staffed, that's very appealing, because they want to fill their need. But at the same time, Corrie talks about the win-win. It is a true win-win, because they're getting them at a subsidized rate, and then we're actually providing an opportunity for the participants. So
it's interesting, because there is such a stigma out there, right? That people have this perception of what folks who've experienced homelessness are like, and they think, we've all heard the things that people say about people, not wanting to do better, and being lazy, and all the things that, those negative stereotypes and things that put limits on folks. And what we're able to do through this program is say that's not true. Like, we have people who are so excited to get back into the workforce. They want so badly to connect and to have value and to have purpose and to have somewhere to go and something to do. But they just need a little extra support. So if we can give that extra support and make it, easier for them to get back into the workforce, and then also make it easier for those businesses to say, hey, I had no idea that there was, this potential. And they, we've had some great reports of participants out at work sites that become like family with the employers, because they just connect so well, because they're so eager. They want so badly to be part of something, which is, it's just so exciting to see happen.
What a positive program on so many levels. Now, you're only a few months in. And before we wrap, I'd like to ask each of you to comment on where you see things going in the coming months, right? This is a fairly new program. Corrie, can we start with you, just with the initial success of Project Rise? What do you see for the future?
I think the really exciting thing about working in an innovative environment and in a program like this, it's just, at early days, is that we have the opportunity to flex and to adjust and, see what's working and what's not working. And, Stephen and I have been having some great meetings with our team and thinking about, how could we do this differently, or what would be a better support in this way. And so it's really exciting to be able to adjust the program. So we've got some different things coming, which I'm sure Stephen will speak to a little bit. But also what we've noticed is that there's another gap. So, and I think we kind of had been aware of this all the way through. But even for some folks that have gotten stability in housing, and they're, our teams on the ground within our housing sites are so amazing at supporting and doing, everything they can to sort of build that level of resilience and kind of engage with folks. And then we've now got Project Rise, where we're asking them to come into classroom and to be involved and to be connected. And for some people, it's an easy transition to go from just getting that stability, and then they can jump right into Project Rise. They're ready to go. They're so excited, but there's still a gap for a lot of folks. We're finding a lot of folks who have got some, pretty substantial mental health challenges and some pretty substantial substance use concerns, and have been isolated and have lacked connection for a significant amount of time. And so the gap that we've noticed through it all is, for those folks that now just need to kind of connect. They need to just ease into that transition. So we're really excited. We have a new coordinator for our brand new life skills program starting next week. And so that person in that program is going to be bridging the gap that we've established, or that we've noticed happening. And so working with Stephen and seeing, when Stephen is interviewing people to come into one of his cohorts, what is it that they, if they're not quite ready for the program just yet, what are some things that we could do to support them to get ready for the program, if that's a goal? And for some people, that is the goal. For some people, it's not. Employment isn't the goal for them at this point in their time, in their lives, and that's totally fine. So, what are their goals, and how can we develop programming, develop connections where they can start meeting their goals? Because we know, and I mean, Stephen, I'm sure, can also attest to this. You start meeting those little goals, one after another, one foot in front of the other, and suddenly it opens up a whole world of possibilities to folks. So I'm so excited to see how the two programs will work together when we start sort of, helping people reach those little tiny goals. Can I come and be part of this arts and crafts program in the place where I live? And, I come out every Tuesday afternoon and I start to engage and I make friends and I connect in that way. And when that starts to happen, I wonder what's the next step. I wonder what else I could be doing. So yeah, I mean, there's so much possibility. I could talk forever about it. But it's very exciting because it's that hope. It's seeing that, like David talked about, that spark in people's eyes when they start to see the possibilities that might be there for them.
Sounds very exciting. Stephen, what do you see for the future of Project Rise?
It's interesting. Corrie, I'm going to just take that nice little segue that you had there as far as that kind of blowing it up and making it bigger and having the impact be greater in our community. And I'm excited about that because having been the person who developed the curriculum and been involved in developing these types of programs in our community for almost 15, 20 years, what I find myself doing is always, always, always going back to what is the need of the person who's participating in the program. And I have them direct me as to where I go next, because we evaluate all the time. We give them the opportunity to give them themselves a report card as to how they're doing in the group. And also our work hosts do a report card too. And out of that input, I then go back and I say, oh, okay, what parts have been missing in the program, in the curriculum? What parts do we need to include? What are the ones that that didn't sit so well? So we're not going to eliminate it, but maybe we'll just put it on the back burner for right now. But at the end of the day, it's that communication and that connection with the participant and seeing how they're getting involved again in their community. For some of them that have been here all their lives and just not been people that have been seen for the last 2 or 3 years, to now have themselves say, hey, I want to be seen now. And to know that they're part of that community that they kind of distanced themselves from before is very, very powerful. And it motivates me, like I say, to test the waters a little bit, try a new thing that might have not worked before. But now with this social enterprise, as Corrie's talking about, it often then says, okay, the amount of time that we put into that now will go back into the program. And that if I have work hosts that buy into this idea and want to come back, like I have work hosts that still have 2 participants at the location from previous programs and are still taking on new participants. That says to me, we're in the right game, right? We're doing the thing the right way. And I follow up with each and every one of them. We do a big thank you and a graduation ceremony and acknowledge all the efforts that have gone into making this successful. And it's that connection with and the relationship piece it remains so paramount to all of this working. So I can't thank all of my team and the supporting cast of outreach workers and the managers at each program location. But it's really the work hosts that embrace this, because without them, we wouldn't have a program. We wouldn't have them going anywhere to work. And yeah, we could sit around and talk about program and workshops in a classroom forever. But if our goal wasn't to get them out there doing that stuff in the workforce, I don't think it would work. So I'm always challenged to do something better, a different day every day. You know what I mean? And have them lead me.
What what an exciting program that just gives hope for building a better future for everyone. Thank you, Stephen, and thank you, Corrie, for joining us today. This has been a lovely conversation, and we'll be sure to include in the show notes links to where folks can learn more about the program and purchase some of your great baked goods. Let's talk again soon. To learn more about BC Housing or to apply for subsidized housing in British Columbia, visit our website at bchousing.org.